faithfully sharing value and explaining great books from around the world. Hi, this is Sally here with Book Talks. Today, I'll introduce you to the book Ming and Qing Social History, written by Ho Ping Ti, a famous overseas Chinese historian. At first, you might scratch your head at this title. What's this book really about? Hold on, let's check out the English title of the book. The English name is literally The Ladder of Success in Imperial China, meaning China from Qin to Han to Ming to Qing dynasties under imperial rule. So what's this ladder of success all about? Oh, that's the imperial exam system everyone knows. In Ming and Qing times, it ruled social mobility. And the book, Ming Qing Social History, is a classic that uncovers social mobility in that era. Throughout history, social mobility has been a big deal for people. Like the old saying, people aim high, water flows low. Social mobility is about shifts in jobs, status, and class in society. When it comes to direction, folks are more interested in moving up. In modern online talk, we call it Nixie, like a comeback. Oh, like a guard entering Peking U or starting from scratch to making big bucks from nobody to somebody. So nowadays, if you want to move up, there are loads of paths. Like they say, every field has its stars. But back in ancient China, folks didn't have as many options. And old China had a flat structure, basically just two kinds: the Shi, who could be officials, and the Min, who couldn't. So if ancient folks wanted to come back, they had to become officials. If not, no status boost. Take Xu Guangqi, a Ming scientist. He didn't climb up via science. Xu's passions in math, farming, and stars came from his dad. But those hobbies didn't aid the Ixus status. When Xu was born, the family was already down and out. That as a young man, a home robbery left him poor. So Xu Guangqi spent his early life farming while teaching, maintaining a meager existence. It wasn't until age 42, when he passed the Imperial exam and joined the Hanlin Academy, that he truly entered high society. With this status, he turned his scientific interests into lasting historical fame. Clearly, the key to upward mobility in ancient times was excelling in imperial examinations. So it's no wonder ancient people were fixated on these exams. It stemmed entirely from their desire for upward mobility. Anyway, let's explore how Ming Qing Social History comprehensively reveals the imperial exam system and its societal impact. The book mainly discusses three aspects. First, how the imperial examination system originated and evolved. Second, why during Ming-Qing era it became the conductor of social mobility. Third, what measures did Ming-Qing governments take to maintain exam fairness? And why did the examination system eventually decline? Let's start with the first point. First aspect, the birth of the imperial exam system, which lasted over 1,300 years in China. Describing it thoroughly isn't easy. For clarity, we'll explain it in three stages. First, the ideological background. Feudal-era China, particularly the Zhou dynasty, practiced hereditary nobility like the West. Nobles passed titles perpetually, while commoners remained commoners. Social classes were fixed, but during the Spring, Autumn, and Warring States periods, feudalism faced collapse. Major philosophies like Confucianism, legalism, and Mohism advocated replacing hereditary privilege with merit-based selection to maintain stability. Among them, Confucian ideas prevailed in breaking class barriers. Confucianism reinforced that social status should depend on ability. Mencius proposed mental labor superiority over physical labor. This theoretically explained why scholars ranked above farmers, artisans, and merchants in the four-class societal model, because they were the only class focused solely on mental work. On the other hand, only Confucianism offered practical, actionable proposals. Confucius observed that many gifted commoners lost potential due to lack of education, which hindered the ruling class from selecting the best talents. Thus, he proposed the immortal principle of education without distinction. opening educational and social mobility opportunities to all. Mencius expanded this idea, suggesting the state establish schools at all levels to educate the people. Under Confucian educational principles, talent selection developed considerable openness, enabling social mobility. However, establishing a proper talent selection system based on Confucian ideals proved challenging. Early Chinese dynasties implemented Confucian concepts through the Han's recommendation system and Wei Jin's nine-rank system. These systems required Confucian expertise, but relied on recommendations from acquaintances or relatives, heavily favoring family background and connections. After 2 to 3 centuries, both systems were abolished. This happened because they imposed family status requirements that gradually eroded fairness during implementation. Ultimately, powerful families monopolized them, preventing true social openness. To avoid the Han-Wei era's closed selection practices, the Sui dynasty created the imperial examination system we discuss. Imperial examinations literally meant selecting scholars through categorized tests, similar to modern analogy tone. Similar to modern university majors and specialized exams, it replaced Wei Jin's personnel selection methods. The exam system's founding purpose was to further open social mobility, creating a more inclusive talent selection framework. But 2 more steps were needed for this system to become what we recognize. First, during Tang Song dynasties, exam subjects and content gradually standardized. Initially, numerous exam subjects aimed to select specialists in different fields. Candidates might excel in legal affairs, calligraphy, or arithmetic, or they might demonstrate mastery of Confucian classics. However, from the late Tang Dynasty onward, the Jinshi examination, which tested analytical thinking, rose to become the most important subject. By Wang Anqi's reforms in the Song Dynasty, other subjects were abolished, leaving only the Jinshi examination. Thus emerged the exam system we recognize today. The Jinshi subject demanded not just Confucian mastery, but practical application to solve governance issues. So, through Tangsong development, the exam system refined talent definition to be both narrow and precise. The second step, during Tang and Song, especially Song, exams became institutionally fairer. Under Tang's Empress Wu, the sealed name method prevented examiner-candidate collusion. Song fully adopted it, covering names and hometowns on papers. Today, sealed names seem ordinary in exams, but back then, revolutionary. Yet sealed names had a flaw. Examiners could recognize handwriting. What then? To fix this, Song introduced transcription. Clerks recopied answers, proofreaders verified them, then anonymous copies went to graders. Delivered to examiners, these 2 practices were vital for the exam system's endurance. They maximized fairness and impartiality in selection. By Ming-Qing era, this selection system permeated society. Through tiered exams, it granted official qualifications. With this status boost, imperial exams conducted social mobility. Ming-Qing exams had 4 levels: county, provincial, metropolitan, palace. The provincial exam was decisive for status mobility. Provincial exam passers became jurin, elevated men, gaining honorific titles. With official qualifications, they commanded local respect. Metropolitan and palace exams were higher, national-level tests. Jurin passing metropolitan exams earned jinshi, the system's highest honor. The palace exam, personally overseen by the emperor, didn't eliminate candidates but ranked metropolitan passers. So, the top 3 palace exam graduates are called Zhuangyuan, Bangyan, and Tanhua, all holding the Jinshi degree. Imperial exams were known as the nation's talent selecting ceremony. Since officials governed the nation, Ming-Qing governments kept admission rates extremely low and held exams only every 3 years to control bureaucracy size. Thus, the exams were both alluring and grueling, a paradox captured in poetry. 10 years unnoticed study, one triumph makes you known. Across the world, now that we understand the exam system, let's explore. Why did imperial exams profoundly impact Ming Qing social mobility? Per the book, we'll explain from two angles. First angle, the positive. Exams were the primary path for upward mobility. Firstly, they offered a fast track to wealth and power. Exam degrees directly linked to bureaucratic positions. Once appointed, one's social and economic status transformed completely. Mingqing bureaucracy had three tiers: upper officials, ranks 1 through 3, central and provincial leaders; mid level, ranks 4 to 7, key central and local figures; lower officials, ranks 8 through 9, local functionaries. Mingqing rules. Jurin degree qualified for lower offices. Jinshi automatically entered mid level. The lowest degree, Shenyuan, was a transitional group between commoners and officials. Though slightly above commoners, Shenyuan couldn't directly become officials, so it barely elevated family status. Many poor youths remained impoverished after earning Shenyuan. Even wealthy families didn't celebrate it. For example, Ming merchant Zhang Shi in Huating County devotedly supported his son's exam pursuits. After both sons passed Shenyuan, Zhang still pushed relentlessly. After all, Shenyuan meant little. Only when one son later became Jiran did he relax, believing his family status had risen. Becoming Jiran was decisive for entering officialdom, because the system stipulated that Jiren were qualified to directly hold lower-level official posts. Though these lower positions were called sesame seed officials, compared to commoners, their status was completely transformed. In Ming and Qing times, countless examples showed how passing provincial exams brought both fame and fortune. Writer Wu Jinzi synthesized real cases into the iconic character Fan Jin. Fan Jin devoted his life to imperial exams, only becoming a Shen Yuan in his 50s, then later passing provincial exams as Jiren. Before, Fan Jin's family lived in thatched huts, wore tattered hemp clothes, and ate meager meals. Even then, he often relied on his father-in-law's support to survive. So, not only did outsiders scorn him, even his father-in-law constantly berated him, especially after provincial exams. When he returned home, his family had starved for days. But when news of his passing arrived, his situation flipped completely. First, local gentry personally visited with 50 taels of silver and a mansion. Then commoners lined up, flattering, gifting, farmlands, shops, even offering servitude. Within months, Fan Jin had maids and servants. Money and rice became abundant. Even his father-in-law immediately switched to fawning upon his success. Since such drastic status change was predictable after passing, it's understandable why Fan Jin went mad with joy upon hearing the news. Yet many ambitious scholars weren't content with modest gains. They'd skip immediate office to pursue higher exams. A prestigious Jinshi degree enabled starting as mid-level officials, the sure path to high positions and wealth. Moreover, this upward path showed a crucial feature: maximum openness to all social classes. Regardless of humble, unusual, or lowly origins, everyone had the right to study and take exams, an appeal unmatched elsewhere. Without historical income data, it's hard today to grasp what humble origins truly meant. And the author Ho Ping Ti took a different approach, offering a reference-worthy definition. The author defines Category A families as those without a single Shangguan degree holder across 3 generations. Category B families had one or more Shangguan but no higher degrees. Both categories were considered humble. Many from such backgrounds succeeded in imperial exams during Ming and Qing. Qi Shan from Ming Dynasty exemplifies this. Qi Shan's ancestors were farmers. His great-grandfather aspired to study and become an official in youth. Yet, by age 92, when he died, none of his descendants could afford education. Learning of his great-grandfather's dying wish in childhood, Qi Shan was inspired to rise above, but precarious finances and malnutrition caused tuberculosis. His mother's death left him bedridden for years, recovering only at 29. Later, inspired by Wang Yongming's philosophy, he passed provincial and metropolitan exams within 2 years, rising to fifth-rank official and founding an official family. Qishan's case proves imperial exams didn't discriminate against peasant families. Beyond farmers, Minqing had hereditary service households like artisan, military, and salt worker categories. Legally, these statuses were hereditary. Yet many escaped hereditary status through education and exams. Such families produced notables, e.g., Ming's Wu Quan from artisan household ranked first in metropolitan and palace exams, becoming Minister of Rights. Mid-Ming's powerful Grand Secretary Li Dongyang came from military household. King's Ling Khan overcame salt worker status and poverty to become Jinshi at 33. For the humble-born, exams were the primary, often sole, path upward, driving relentless pursuit, and the system truly met their expectations. Per the author, among officials entering via Jinshi degree, over half came from humble families in early Ming, peaking at 84%. After the mid-Ming period, this figure declined, averaging between 30 to 40% until the mid-Qing era. It was precisely because the imperial examination system maintained considerable openness that participating in the exams became a mainstream value pursued by all social classes. This led to the phenomenon of establishing Confucian schools across the nation. Stimulated by the imperial exams, education in Ming-Qing times saw unprecedented growth. Government established official schools expanded rapidly to over 1,200 in the early Ming period. Driven by official schools, local community schools, charitable schools, and private academies also flourished greatly. In the Ming Dynasty, some culturally advanced provinces established over 1,000 private schools. One could say that under the goal of serving imperial exams, Confucius's concept of education without distinction achieved its fullest realization in Ming and Qing times. Establishing schools was just the beginning. Once schools existed, societal resources poured overwhelmingly into education. First, the government established a nationwide subsidy system, providing necessary food and lodging for Shenyuan students in official schools, ensuring they focused on exams. Top performers received more. Next, local government organizations and clans also worked hard to provide travel expenses and lodging support for candidates traveling for exams. After the mid-Ming period, a trend arose where regions established guild halls in the capital specifically to host local candidates coming to Beijing for metropolitan exams. But it should be noted that the imperial exams showed strong openness, and society displayed immense enthusiasm for them. However, as mentioned earlier, the number of admissions had to be strictly controlled. Therefore, during the Qing period, the flip side of exam prosperity was more participants and fiercer competition. Per person, the chance of passing decreased, and since exam degrees weren't hereditary, winning in exams naturally led to upward mobility. Conversely, abandoning the exams inevitably led to decline. Thus, this created the inverse relationship between imperial exams and social mobility. That is, detaching from or failing in exams caused official families to decline rapidly, another aspect of how exams profoundly impacted social mobility. In Ming and Qing times, only a few descendants of prominent families enjoyed hereditary titles or direct official appointments without exams. Both practices actually accelerated those families' downward social mobility. Because noble titles were mostly honorary sinecures without real power. Nevertheless, hereditary rules downgraded titles with each generation. I like the saying, noble influence lasts 5 generations. Princes become commandery kings, then mere generals. Without new achievements, they'd become commoners. Relying solely on hereditary privilege couldn't sustain status long. The Jia family's rise and fall in Dream of the Red Chamber perfectly illustrates this. The Ningguo and Rongguo mansions were founded by military merits, yet later generations neither earned new honors nor pursued exams. So their decline was inevitable. By the fifth generation, Mingguo's Jiazhang had virtually no title left. Rongguo's Jiazhang recognized exam importance, but his son Baoyu despised them. They only clung to status through Yuanchun's imperial favor. When Yuanchun fell from grace, the family's crisis erupted. Additionally, high officials' descendants could receive direct appointments via imperial grace without exams. This was called the literati patronage system, meaning ancestral achievements granted descendants official posts, like resting in ancestors' shade, but unreliable for mobility. Only direct heirs of third rank plus officials qualified, and positions dropped 4 ranks. For example, a first rank official's son got fifth rank, usually just for one generation. And families couldn't benefit long term. For example, Ming official Biangong's son became mid rank via patronage, but later descendants faded into illiterate farmers. Rarely did emperors extend privileges for exceptional ministers. For instance, Qing's powerful minister Zhang Tingyu was such an exception. His eldest son received a low-rank title through patronage. When the eldest later became Jinshi, the emperor exceptionally transferred the privilege to the second son. After the second son also became Jinshi, the emperor again transferred it to the third son. Zhang's fourth son didn't even pass provincial exams. Later Emperor Qianlong fondly remembered Zhang Tingyu and exceptionally granted his fourth son the position of Grand Secretary at Academiocian. Even with such extraordinary favor, the Zhang family's status still plummeted. After Zhang's death, his grandsons achieved no high degrees, only minor posts through patronage or donations. Whether meritorious veterans or top officials, Minqing systems eliminated widespread hereditary nobility. Thus, the safest way to avoid downward mobility was through study and exams. For scholarly families, imperial exams were a constant whip. Slight negligence could doom even cultured families to ruin. Official descendants often pursued leisure, sapping both exam ambition and family wealth. The upwardly mobile first generation was typically diligent and frugal, but by the second or third generation, youth chased luxury and pleasure, failing exams. Many Ming-Qing noble families declined this way. The Wang family of Xinjiang Shandong epitomizes this. The Wangs rose from tenant farmers. After 3 generations, Wang Chongguang became Jinshi during Jiajing reign, transforming their fate. Wang Chongguang knew exams' importance, centering family education on exam ambition, teaching efficient study and exam essay writing. Under this ethos, the 5th generation produced 3 Jinshi and 1 Juren, rising to higher offices. The Wang family discipline was extremely strict. All young males had to focus solely on preparing for imperial exams at home, without wasting energy elsewhere. By the 6th generation, the Wang family reached the peak of success in imperial examinations. This generation produced 9 Jinshi, 1 Juren, and 3 students studying at the Imperial Academy in Beijing. But it was also from the 6th generation that signs of decline began to emerge in the Wang family. With the family's rapid rise in status, some in the 6th generation began abandoning exams due to enjoying comfort. Afterward, both the quantity and quality of the family's exam successes severely declined. The Wang family's prestige was initially demonstrated in their accomplishments in calligraphy, painting, poetry, and other arts. This leads to the most famous figure in the Wang family's 8th generation, Meng Shizhen. Meng Shizhen lived during the Kangxi era. He rejected imperial exams and devoted himself to literary creation and collecting rare ancient books and artworks. As a result, after Wang Shizhen, the Wang family declined rapidly and was forgotten by the late Qing. Descendants became impoverished and had to sell off all his collections of books, antiques, and paintings. Studying was a grueling task. The long preparation process was torture, so scions of noble families preferred enjoying the fruits of family success. And abandoning efforts in exams made it hard for noble families to overcome external challenges. Moreover, the exam success rate was inherently low, often involving chance. So throughout Ming-Qing, jinshi from noble families averaged only 5.7% of the total. In other words, the vast majority of noble descendants lost their exam advantage, leading to widespread downward mobility among Ming-Qing noble families, creating a pessimistic mood in society, lamenting wealth doesn't last 3 generations. One could say that the imperial exam system, as a cruel intellectual game, intentionally or unintentionally ensured social mobility, openness under Ming-Qing cultural conditions, allowing all classes to attempt on this battlefield. On this battlefield, even successful families struggled to prevent later generations from downward mobility. The ladder of success was very narrow, but it was always there, never disappearing. This became a nearly spontaneous and intriguingly fair and just system in Ming and Qing times. Of course, beyond these socially driven ups and downs, in the exam-dominated cultural ecosystem, Ming-Qing governments actively took measures to maximize the fairness of this system. The most crucial measure was addressing regional cultural gaps by implementing provincial quotas for jinshi admissions. To rule such a vast empire, the court needed representatives from all regions to maintain provincial stability. In early Ming, economic and cultural disparities led to huge gaps in jinshi admission rates between provinces. This conflict erupted during the 1380 metropolitan examinations. Southern candidates dominating the pass list provoked Northern scholars' outrage. To placate Northerners, Zhu Yuanzhang executed examiners and top Southern graduates on fraud charges. After annulling results, Zhu established a regional quota: 60% Southern, 40% Northern. Northern regions would get 40%. During Kangxi's reign, regional quotas became provincial quotas, reducing spots for advanced southeastern provinces to benefit underdeveloped regions. But exam-based mobility wasn't a cure-all for societal development issues. The system's founding purpose ultimately caused its demise. From Kangxi-Qianlong era, population explosion intensified exam pressure while admission rates lagged far behind growth. As exams directed social mobility, overall mobility rates declined. Provincial quotas temporarily boosted mobility in backward regions, but reshaped mobility patterns. However, the system's flaws grew obvious. Talented candidates from advanced regions faced lifelong frustration, wasting resources and creating instability. The late Qing Taiping Rebellion was launched by a failed exam candidate. Around the Taiping era, the government gradually lost local control, reflected in talent selection systems. First, to solve financial difficulties, the government opened the door to official donations. Wealthy people supplied military funds in exchange for future official posts. Additionally, during the Qing suppression of the Taiping Rebellion, a large military merit class emerged. After the chaos, these minimally educated people reaped benefits and became officials through military achievements. Moreover, with turmoil straining national finances, the government encouraged the wealthy to buy offices, so even exam graduates couldn't become officials without donating money. Wealth gradually surpassed exams as the main path upward. Amidst disorder, imperial exams lost their edge, and society grew increasingly hostile toward the humble-born. After the Taiping Rebellion, exams gradually lost appeal for the poor. Statistics show jinshi from humble backgrounds dropped from 30 to 40% to around 10%. Exams' role as a social mobility conductor drastically weakened. Secondly, Ming-Qing China's economy increasingly diverged from global trends. Against this backdrop, exam-driven mobility fundamentally differed from modern Western societies. The West's rapid tech revolutions fueled economic vitality, creating steady upward mobility through income and professions. But in stagnant Ming-Qing China, agricultural economies were swallowed by population growth, causing overall downward mobility, a problem exams couldn't solve. Thus, amid deep crisis, exams were inevitably replaced by Western-style education. In 1905, under sweeping reforms, the Qing abolished exams to eliminate their inertia, ushering China into a new era of education and mobility concepts. All right, that's our interpretation of Ming and Qing social history. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.